Want to be a topper in MBA entrance exams? Join BYJU'S Exam Prep, CAT and MBA YouTube channel and watch serial 99 percentilers teaching you the tips and tricks.
Good morning everyone. Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. My name is Alpa Sharma and this is our editorial analysis. I hope you can hear and see me clearly, everybody. Very good morning. If you could very quickly confirm that I'm clearly visible and audible, we shall start off with our session. I've got a very interesting piece of article today. Good morning everyone. I hope everything's fine. My voice, the video, everything reaches you clearly. Yes, good morning roosters. Good morning. Okay, yes, clearly visible and audible. All right. So today is a Thursday and we see each other again. Second time in the week because I see you every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what we do in the class, we usually take articles from various sources where CAT and other MBA entrance examinations would pick up articles from. And today what we're going to be doing is I'll be picking up only one article, and as I had promised you that I will make sure that I bring at least one Aeon article every week, because that's something people struggle with. That's long and that's one of the sources where a lot of articles come up from. So yes, today is the day. I've got one article from the Aeon. This is what we're going to be doing today. And today's article is one of those articles which I rarely come across that doesn't need any editing. That is, the length of the article is in itself a short one. Isn't that surprising? Aeon giving us a short article and one that you will be hooked to till the end. Till the end, you will be on your toes reading what the article talks about. Are you excited for that? We're going to be listening to a very nice story today. The article is full of a story, and through stories, there's another implication that we'll learn here. And one of those topics that we haven't taken up in a long time. So that's the topic of the article. Okay, and what exactly is the topic? I'll let you guess with the vocabulary that I show you. Towards the end, we'll be discussing the tone and you'll write down the summary under my video in the comment section. We shall also try to draw some inferences in between some lines that we need to be paying attention to. So that's the agenda of the class today. Are you excited, everyone? Nandini, okay, I have classes only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, bache. So Wednesday, there are no editorial classes. It's only Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay, on this platform. Good morning, Somnath. All right. So let's have a look at the vocabulary and let's see if you can guess the topic of the article that I've brought today. So that's the first page. Okay. Now I'm going to explain something in detail here, but I'll keep this word pending. I'll discuss this word towards the end. Let's start with adjudged. Now, adjudged, adjudication is a legal term that explains how we find somebody guilty and then penalize that person for the guilt that he has committed. So, for example, if there's a defaulter, the defaulter will be adjudged and will be asked to either go through some punishment or pay some penalty. That's adjudication. The defaulter was adjudged to pay the whole amount. He was criticized. He was found as faulty, and then he was asked to pay an amount. That is what adjudged here is. That is what the process of adjudication means. Finding out who the culprit is. Okay. Of course, Ranjit, you've got ample of time on your hands. You just need to be very regular, very consistent. Guys, I'll write this word at the top because that's my favorite word for any person who prepares for MBA entrance examination. And that's consistency. See, guys, this examination, is it a cakewalk? Probably not. But is it one of the most difficult examinations our country has? Probably not as well. The only thing it demands you to do is be regular with your practice. Be regular with the things we ask you to do. So if there's reading that I ask you to do, I expect you to do it regularly without breaks. One day off because you were not well is fine. But a month off because you have your examinations going on in the college, you have to give it less priority. Okay? So you need to make a balance here. Consistency is the key. No, Nandini, but good guess. It's not on the Depp and Heard case. No, it's not on that, but good guess. Okay? All right. So the next word is nifty. Nifty is very skilled, very effective. Not the nifty we see in our country with the Sensex and the share market. No, not that nifty. This nifty is a vocabulary word, not a short form of any bigger phrase. This means that you're very efficient and deft, and okay, deft is a synonym to it. Okay, deft is skilled. So you're skilled, you're very good at something, that's nifty. Nifty footwork, skilled footwork. Nifty work, skilled work. Nifty article, or nifty piece of writing, it's a skilled piece of writing. So your skill, effectiveness, or your you being deft at something is nifty. And the last word is innocuous. Innocuous is something that's very naive, is not very likely to harm anyone. Very not offensive at all, simple, plain, and not likely to hurt somebody is innocuous. So it was an innocuous question, a harmless question. So I'll write harmless as a synonym to it. Adroit is nifty. Yes, Prats, it is. Very good. I'll write that word as well. That also is an exact synonym to it. Okay. All right. Now, let me explain this word in a little bit of detail, because once you explain this word, you'll know exactly what the article can be about. So, ordeal or justice by ordeal is when it's an old-fashioned way of finding or giving justice to a case. What we do today is justice is given either by a jury or justice is either given by a single judge. Okay? And there are some countries where you can choose who is going to give you justice. For example, in our country, it is very, very, very likely that we are going to be judged by one single person sitting on the bench, okay? And that person is going to listen to our case and find who the culprit is. But then, in exceptional cases, there's a whole bench that sits, a team of judges that sit, and they decide. Now, that happens in exceptional cases. For example, rarest of the rare cases, like the Nirbhaya case. We had an entire bench sitting and the bench gave the verdict. So that's rare in our country. But if you talk about Australia, okay, so in Australia, you have a choice. You can choose as, for example, there's a case on you. You can choose who is going to give the verdict here. You can choose a jury or you can choose a judge. Now, that may be a little ambiguous here, because if there's an entire panel of judges that sits as a bench is the word for the panel of judges. If there's an entire bench that sits to decide your case, probably the case is not going to be in favor of you if you're faulty. But if you're faulty and you decide to choose a judge and you know the judge probably, and there's a lot of money that you have and you can influence the judge's decision, then the judge probably can give a decision in your favor, or you can influence the judge easily as well. So there are times when the ordeal is when the decision is passed through a jury or a bench of judges. But if the decision is passed through an ordeal, it was an ancient method where the culprit was found by putting the culprit through severe pain. And if the culprit was able to survive that pain, it was said that no, you're not the culprit, you are innocent because you survived the pain. Did you get the methodology of justice through ordeal here, everyone? Yes, it is, Neha. It is derived from innocent. Okay? Hi, Lata. Somnath, 2 days a week, okay? Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right, so back to it. Did you understand the justice through ordeal? You put somebody through a tough time, a painful punishment, and if you survive that, you are innocent. That's an old method though. We don't follow that today. Okay? So I hope we have clarity on what exactly is justice by ordeal. And that's exactly what we're going to be discussing today. And there's a very catchy story. The article is from the Aeon for everyone who joined me late. And this article keeps you on your toes till the end. You're going to love reading this article. Let's move on to the next page. This is slide number 1. Okay. You already know the article is on law. Agni Pariksha type. Yes, exactly. It's an Agni Pariksha. In Hindi, you can say that. So you exactly know the article is going to be on law. The next page. So page number 2, unscathed. So unscathed is that you come out without any harm, without any damage. So if there was an accident, for example, and the passenger escaped unscathed, that means the passenger came out unharmed, without any injury, without any suffering. I came through all those perils, difficult times unscathed. You were not harmed. Is unscathed. Oh, exactly, roosters. Yes. So that's unscathed. Okay. And the last word is exonerated. Exoneration is when there's a blame on somebody, but then you say, no, you did not commit a crime. You are exonerated. That means you are made free from all the blames or faults on your head. Absolving you of all the blame is exoneration. So absolving is a related word to exonerated. An inquiry exonerated those involved. So this inquiry set people on whom the blames were made. It set them free, set them away from all the wrongdoings. Is exonerated. So that's slide number 2. Too many legal terms. No, Somnath, you cannot, but I'll tell you something. You can take screenshots of the vocabulary slides and you can easily find the article that I've brought today on the Aeon. You just have to type the first line and you'll find that article, okay? That's how you find the article. But then you don't need to find the article. This class is enough for that. Just take screenshots of the vocabulary that I've brought for you. Now, before I show you the actual article and what the topic is, meet our unstoppables of CAT 2021. We've got Prathamesh, Ashish, Vishwanath who have landed up in their dream IIMs. If you also wish to be one of them, make sure you enroll yourself right away into our CAT 22 comprehensive program, where we train you under the guidance of Serial 99 and some of the Serial 100 percentiles as well. Look no further, enroll yourself right away. The contact number of our counselors is at the scroll bottom bar that's going on. Call them right away, enroll yourself right away. Let's have a look at the article. Is vindicated related to exonerated? It is, Prads. Acquitted, Amrit, that's a technical term. Yes, acquitted. I'll go back to the questions, the vocabulary. Acquitted is an exact technical term for a legal case going on. Whereas if there's no legal case, yet you are set blame free, that's exonerated. So the only difference with acquitted and exonerated is an official legal case. If there's an official legal case that goes on and you're set free, you are acquitted. But if it's an informal one, probably no legal case, there's an inquiry in the organization that you're working for, we can use the word exonerated. But yes, of course, they are synonymous. So let's move to the article, everyone. Now, the article is about why the trial by ordeal was actually an effective test of guilt. Can a trial by ordeal be an effective test? Let's try to understand that. I'll quickly repeat what was the trial by ordeal. Putting a person on whom the blame has been putting that person through a severe painful process. If the person comes out victorious, unscathed, unharmed, then you are innocent. But how can that crude and brutal method be actually an effective test? We are trying to analyze it through this Aeon article. Read the page, everyone, and send me done when you're done. All right. So in our country, let's understand this article from our country's perspective. Okay. If there's a case that declares X person guilty, how can we absolutely sure if this person is guilty or not? It could be a result of bribing. It could be a result of malpractices. It could be a result of playing with the evidence. Our country is full of such cases. And our country is full of one more thing. It could be a result of trial by media. Have you seen that? That happened with the Talwar case. Trial by media. Even before an official trial happened in the court, the media goes on with a trial. These parents killed their daughter. They are the culprit. They are inhuman. How could somebody do this with the daughter? Is it honor killing? And XYZ. Many things. That means, how can we absolutely sure of the fact that this person committed a crime or not? The only way of identifying that could be the defendant himself admitting that I did the fault, I did the murder, I did the crime, or God telling us, because God sees everything. He can see everything, right? So these are the only two ways we can be sure of who the culprit is. But the defendant himself committing or the defendant himself agreeing publicly to the crime is rare. We don't come across such a thing. We hear of such a thing very rarely. Why would somebody say, I did the crime? Very rarely somebody would. You have seen that with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. Either of them did not agree, okay, I did domestic violence. Both the parties kept blaming each other. Why would somebody agree to it? Now, that is rare. But only one thing that we have left with is God telling us that this person is guilty. So, if we ask God, can you tell us who's guilty? Then probably we find a correct answer here, because we cannot trust the judiciary, we cannot trust the media, we cannot trust anybody else, and defendant would not admit to it. So we're going to look for God. God will tell us exactly who did the crime. In Sushant Singh Rajput case as well, Jessica Lal case as well, exactly, Nandini. It could be a blackmail as well. Sometimes defendant is not guilty but has to admit because of blackmailing. Coercion is the word. Because of coercion as well, that you, if do not agree to it, I'm going to do XYZ things, or you take this amount of money, I'm going to keep your family safe, but you admit to doing the crime. Our country is full of such cases. So now we're left with only God. How can God help us identifying the culprit? The way is trial by ordeal, putting the person through physical pain, and if the person comes out victorious, then the person is acquitted, exonerated. But do you think this methodology is a correct one? That's a very vague one. Half of the people don't even believe in God. Who believe in God, they know that God will not come to earth and help us this way. Okay? So yet, this is an effective test. Let's identify how is that an effective test. Read the next page, everyone. Hi, Abhilasha. You just are a little late. So now, you see that for 400 years, Europe followed trial by ordeal, putting somebody through pain, physical pain, and checking if the person was innocent or not. And it would usually be a method of justice where there was no evidence. You couldn't decide. Since jury was not able to decide who the culprit was, they would ask God, God, please tell us who the culprit is. And if the person, the defendant, came out victorious towards the end, unscathed, he would be acquitted of the crime. Okay, that's the judicial ordeals. Otherwise, where there was evidence, the judge would give the verdict. Imagine for good 400 years, they followed this methodology. Now, what were the kinds of pains they would be put through? Dunking them in a pool of holy water. Okay, that's fine. Walking barefoot across burning plowshares. So you might burn your legs, or the most common ones were boiling water and putting your hand in it, and you would be asked to fish out a coin or a ring from the boiling water, or probably walking with it's a ring that you have to dunk out, okay, or probably walking with a burning iron in your hand for several paces. Now, after some time, the hand was inspected. If the hand was burnt, that means you are guilty. If the hand was fine, that means you are free. Okay, you are acquitted. So that was the process. Now you still must be wondering, why is this brutal process still an effective one? Will God actually come and help these people? No, probably there's another side of the story that we're still waiting for. Okay, and yeah, that's the whole point, Disha. How is it practically even possible? Okay, Rohit, I'll repeat because the entire article is based on judicial ordeals. I'll repeat what judicial ordeal is. Putting a person through physical pain. Pains like the last paragraph in this page suggests. And if, so the defendant has to do these things, one of these things, probably put his hand into boiling water. If the hand comes out unburnt, that means you are not guilty. You are acquitted. But if your hand is burnt, you're going to be declared guilty. But how on earth is that even possible? How is that an effective method? Before I show you the next slide and tell you the next part of the story, did you even like my... I have only 5 likes. Oh yes, it does, Nandini, it does. But then GOT was full of mythical creatures. Our life isn't. And it's very likely that your hand is going to come out burnt only. Okay? You haven't liked my video. There are barely 5 likes. I've got 25 people like. I need 25 likes before I show you the next slide of the story. Now that I have your attention here. Neha, let's see what happens, okay? Let's see what happens next. Judicial ordeals were administered and adjudged by the priest. Because you are praying to the God to help you find the culprit, the priest has to make an appearance in the story. So the priest is going to check. The entire process of the ordeal will be managed by the priest. In churches as a part of special masses. So there's going to be gathering. Everybody's going to look at you because these are special masses. And every Sunday possibly there are going to be cases where the verdict is going to come out. During such a mass, the priest requested God to reveal to the court the defendant's guilt. That means the priest would pray to the God that God, please let the culprit come out in the public by the process of ordeal, or innocent as well. Letting boiling water or burning iron burn the defendant if he was guilty, performing a miracle that prevented the defendant's hand from burning if he was innocent. But this probably is very unlikely. Probably everybody was found guilty. The idea that God would respond to a priest's request in this way reflected a popular medical belief. According to the ordeals were this phrase. So basically, it's a Latin phrase that said, judgment is given by the God. Now the God, because he's seen everything, will either miraculously protect the innocent or let the culprit burn. And then the priest would pray and then the verdict would happen. After a week, you would see the hand and you would then decide if you are the culprit or not. A simple process. Getting God to judge the guilt or innocence of criminal defendants is a pretty nifty trick. Now, why does he call this trick a very smart, a very skilled trick? because you need pulling it off. That means there's a hidden idea here. That means probably there's something going on in the background. Okay? So this trick that the priest is going to carry out is a tricky one. It needs skill. But how could medieval European courts accomplish this? How could they master this trick? Let's know the answer. Here we go. Okay, now if he makes crime, he first tells and then he go for the process. Okay, who is judging? The people making the person? No, the priest. The priest is the judge here. The priest will check on your hand if it is burnt or not, not the people. But roosters, I think your CID mind is working here. Looks like you watched a lot of CID. Let's see what happens. Rather easily, they could pull off the trick, it turns out. How could they pull it off? Now let's understand the answer. Suppose you're a medieval European who's been accused of stealing your neighbor's cat. So there's accusation on your head and there's a trial going on. The court thinks you might have committed the theft but is not sure. So the court can't give you a verdict. So the court says you have to go by the trial of ordeal. So it orders you to undergo the ordeal of boiling water. Put your hand into the water, the kettle of water, and fish out a ring. Like other medieval Europeans, you believe in this process. That is trial by ordeal. You believe in God. You believe the God is going to save you. You know why this technique could work for good 400 years? Only for one reason, and that was belief. Belief into the God. That God is going to finally help the innocent and bring out the culprit in open light. That a priest, through the appropriate rituals, can tell on God to reveal the truth by performing a miracle that prevents the water from burning you if you're innocent and letting you burn if you're not. So everybody trusted God. Everybody trusted the priest as a messenger of God. If you undergo the ordeal and God says you're guilty, you have to pay a... Now here is the catch, my children. Here is the catch. And the catch is a large fine. That is, if you were found guilty, you have to pay a large fine. And if you're innocent, you can go free without paying anything. If he says you're innocent, you're cleared of the charge and pay nothing. Alternatively, if you can avoid undergoing the ordeal by confessing to having stolen the cat, in which case you pay the fine, a bit reducing for having admitted your guilt. What will you do? So the question is, if you are guilty, you know you are guilty in your heart, and you have been ordered the trial by ordeal. And if your hand burns, because God knows everything, you trust God, you have belief in God, and God is going to prove you guilty. And in the end, you have to pay that huge fine. You would rather think, I will burn my hand and I will pay fine. Why burn my hand? Why not admit to the crime and just pay the fine and save my hand? That is how this trick worked, playing with the belief of people that God is going to find out who the guilty person was. So you would save your hand. You would be scared of the process and you would say, no, 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 I'm going to pay the fine. I don't want to burn my hand to rags. Okay. So that is what you would do. And that's exactly what everybody did. So suppose you're guilty. You know you stole your neighbor's cat and God also knows it because you have faith in God. In this case, you expect that if you undergo the ordeal, God will let your hand burn. And that will be an evidence to your guilt. Thus, you'll have to pay a large fine and your hand will be boiled to rags to boot. So, you know your hand is burnt and you have to pay the fine as well. In contrast, if you confess in the beginning, you save your hand. You just pay the money and you save your hand, not to mention that. So, if you're guilty, you'll confess. With the whole threat of the process, you would confess. And adding on to it, the threat of paying the fine. So you ultimately would basically confess. But there's another catch here. Another catch is that, okay, if I'm innocent, I will not confess to the crime in the beginning, right? I will be put to trial by ordeal. I'll have to dunk my hand into the boiling water. My hand is ultimately going to be burnt, right? if my hand is going to be burnt, I, despite being innocent, will be proven guilty. So it's a backfiring of the law. How did this law last for 400 years then? Proving innocent people guilty? That's an ineffective way of finding the culprit, right? The last option obviously would be better. Yeah. Hi, Atul. So now the question is, how do we find out if somebody is innocent? Because they will not commit. They will not confess in the beginning. They'll go through ordeal. How to save them from the burn, from the unnecessary pain, and then declaring them guilty even if they aren't? That's the question. Let's try to answer that. So now suppose you're innocent. You know you didn't steal your neighbor's cat, and again, so does God. So God knows it. But is God miraculously going to save you? No, He isn't. Your hand ultimately, science says you put your hand in boiling water, you're going to be burned. God is not going to come and save you. So in this case, you expect that you undergo the ordeal and God will perform a miracle that prevents your hand from the boiling water and burning you, evidencing your innocence. Thus, you don't have to pay the fine anymore and you'll keep your hand intact. This is better if you confess to stealing the cat, in which case you'll have to pay a fine and theft you didn't commit. So, if you're innocent, you will undergo the ordeal. But what will save you from burning the hand? Let's try to find an answer to that now. But then, Amrit, the ordeal has to be followed. Because if the ordeal wasn't followed, then nobody would have faith in the process of judiciary. So ultimately, if a person did not commit to a crime, the ordeal had to be done. But no miracle could happen. So how would an innocent person be identified is the question here. Let's try to see how we identify that person. By the way, before I tell you the answer here, do you believe such an article appeared in the Aeon? It's very rare that Aeon gives you an article that's short and that's so catchy that you are on your... It's like a movie that's going on, is it? Do you like this article, everyone, before I show you the answer? That's actually psychology well used. A very smart and a very effective way. Let's see how that happens. Did you catch the trick yet? Because of your belief, this process, that is the trial by ordeal and trust in the God, the spectre of the ordeal leads you to choose one way if you're guilty. Confess, or if you're innocent, undergo the ordeal. That was simple. If you're guilty, you would confess before the ordeal. But if you're innocent, everybody would decide to go through the ordeal, revealing the truth about your guilt or the innocence to the court. That means the priest would know that you are innocent, and that's exactly why you chose to go through the ordeal. You ask God to out you, to prove you innocent. The legal system incentivizes you to out yourself. Pretty nifty indeed. Yes, pretty skilled. So the legal system gives you a choice. Now there's only one hitch. While only an innocent defendant will choose to undergo the ordeal, which allows the court to learn that he's innocent, when he sticks his hand into the boiling water, it burns him and that will make him guilty. So how are we going to protect him to deliver justice? However, the courts need to do more than simply know that you're innocent. We need to prove that you're innocent because there's a mass that's watching you. It happened in the church, in the presence of the audience. How would you prove him innocent in front of you? You know it in your heart that he's innocent. You have to prove him innocent. How could an ordeal administering priest make boiling water innocuous to an innocent defendant's flesh? Priest could not make it. The science wasn't that advanced at that time. The only thing the priest could do was make sure the water is not boiling. Simple as that. So the priest knew that it's an engaging one. It's a catch-22. Yes, my child, it's a catch-22. So yes, Neha, they will make the water look like it's burning or boiling, but actually it isn't. Before I proceed, did you like my session? If you haven't, the scroll says Please do that. Please share the last class. Only one person shared my video. Why is that so? Please do that. I have to hunt a lot to fish out articles like these to catch your attention till the end. Okay, please do that. Like and share and subscribe. Okay. So the only thing the priest could do was, because in his heart he knew you're innocent, he'll make sure the water is not boiling. So there were instruction manuals for the priests that they had to follow, provided them ample opportunity to do just that. Now, see, there are people watching you. You have to make sure the water is boiling. So what the instruction manuals had was, the fire used to heat the water, and the water was prepared by the priest in private. Okay, that's one thing. We'll give you an opportunity to mess up with the temperature of the water. So he could cool the fire. The priest sprinkled holy water over the cauldron. The cauldron is the kettle of the boiling water. Okay, so he would sprinkle holy water. The moment he sprinkled holy water, the temperature would go down. The water would be cool. The ordeal cauldron was removed from the fire at a point during the mass, and the defendant wasn't tested until the priest was done praying. So the priest would pray, and then he would say, "Oh, my prayer is done. Now you can dunk in your hand." So the priest would pray till the time the water cools enough not to burn your hand down. And an ordeal observers were also placed at a respectable distance from the stage. So they can't even watch very carefully. So probably this process is happening here. The ordeal is happening here. The spectators are a little far off. So you can't peep into the boiling water. So all this would make sure the priest has ample number of opportunity to reduce the temperature of the water. Thanks, Prads. Okay, means the search for truth and that due process, then one on the basis they make water or cool by looking it was hot. Exactly. Thank you, Nandini. But what if the public knows this trick played by priest? So, Sai, Europe could pull off the trick for good 400 years. It's very likely that the audience didn't know what was happening. The secret wasn't out. It remained a secret for good 400 years. And then there's another thing, and that's faith. Faith is always superior than logic. Do you agree with my point, Sai? Yes, because there's faith, okay? So, and there's no logic that works here. You'll always think, oh my God, this is God saving him, not the priest. It's logic, but then people did not have that. Their faith was stronger. That's how they could pull it off for good 400 years. Did I mention that it was the priest who ultimately adjudged the ordeal's final outcome? Now, even if after all this, the hand burnt, the priest would decide how much burn had happened after a week. So even if there are minor burns, the priest could not control the temperature all this while because he was looked upon, washed upon. He would check the hand after a week. The blisters would go away. So the priest had the power of authority to decide what happens. So they would not doubt, and the priest would give the result, miraculous result by the end. And because the priest already knew that the person is innocent. So it happened miraculously. That's what people thought, that God saved you. For example, do you see a satire coming out here? An indirect hint of how the belief was misused, probably, or probably how the belief was so blind that you would believe it was a miracle that's happening. For example, in the early 13th century, 208 defendants in Hungary went on hot iron ordeals. Amazingly, nearly 2/3 were unscathed. How is that even possible? They were unharmed. 2/3 were unharmed by the irons they carried, and hence they were exonerated. If the priests who administered these ordeals understood how to heat the iron, as they surely did, that leaves only two explanations. Either the god really did intervene or the priest made sure that the iron wasn't hot. So probably the second one is what's true. Logic tells us that, science tells us that, because that miraculous result probably wasn't out of God's will. Even if it was, some people burnt their hands. Probably God did this. In practice, it might not have mattered whether ordeals were truly God's judgment. We don't know. We don't care if God did it or the priest did it. But ultimately, it was a clever legal system that leveraged criminal defendants' incentives to correctly find who the culprit was. For in either case, the result was the same. Improved criminal justice, thanks to God, because here God helped us find the culprit, not the priest. Yeah? They might detect or search for evidence. Look at the end of the story. Thanks to God. It's such a brilliant pun. You call it pun. Okay? I hope you know this figure of speech, everybody. That's pun. So they might detect or search for evidence in a wheel too. If somebody is guilty and go through the ordeal with evidence, they can burn them. Yes. Yes. So if you've loved the article, please comment under my video. Please share my video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is the only article that I've brought. Your homework today is not the summary. I don't need the summary. The summary is simple. You have to tell me the tone. That's your homework. Comment under my video with the tone and probably something good as well if you've liked the class. And I've already promoted this. Please follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, and Google Play. I'm not ending my class right now. I'm sharing today's Hindu, Indian Express, Aeon in the background. We'll see if there are any other important articles that we need to be reading today. Just give me a second. Sharing today's newspaper in the background. So please stick with me for one more minute and we'll see what is that needs to be read today very carefully. Okay guys, so I am trying to fish out for Aeon articles, the older ones, okay, because the newer ones you anyway are reading. So I'm trying to fish out the older articles, okay. Here it is in the background. Just a minute. Yeah, here you go. Let's come to the Hindu. That's the editorial page. Make sure you don't skip. No, Nandini, in the comment section. Sai in the comment section. Suraj, they are related. Okay? Nandini, the last paragraph, you want me to explain that again? Okay, let's first look at the important editorials, okay? Now, bulldozer on the loose, don't read this. This only needs to be skimmed. Now, on what basis do I decide what should you read and what you should leave? Depending on if that can become a reading comprehension or if that can aid your GK and your awareness that can help you get through the GDPIs, okay? So, only skim. Okay, now this, if you don't know what is the Sri Lankan crisis, please read this carefully. It's an important international affair. Please read this carefully, but if you know what the Sri Lankan crisis is, you can leave this article or merely skim through it. Skim through it. I think you need to read that because it's the Pride month and we need to talk about something of this sort. Please read this. Let's have a look at the text and context. This is a very good article. Usually this article in the text and context is a lot explanatory. So if you have not been regular with the newspapers, it will tell you what's happening. And after the Ukraine-Russia war, the nuclear disarmament has become a very important issue. You have to read this. And the last page for yes. A very good one. I think I'm going to take this article in the next class. It's on the nicotine addiction. Now let's have a look at the Aeon. Here it is. No new article. No new article. How to find the Hindu paper online? You'll have to buy a subscription, Rohit. You'll have to buy a subscription. Although I'll tell you some illegal methods, you'll find everything free online. Okay, so you just need to look out for that. But then if you want to follow the legal process, you have to get a paid subscription for that. Okay, so let's have a look at the Aeon. This is a very good one. Please read that if you haven't. Apart from this, I think this as well, from the perspective of it becoming, that's in my background, I think. I'll open this article. Sorry. This one. Okay. Because usually articles on politics and philosophy are very, very important. So please read this one. Okay. And this is a very simple one. You can skim through it. So that's all from the new articles, and let's have a look at the Indian Express as well. Indian Express can be seen, accessed without a paid subscription. Good and bad freebies are very important. Okay, very, very interesting article. Read that. Oh, okay. You have to read this. 100 years of this brilliant book. Please read this one. Probably I'll take this. And anything else? That's all. Everything else is very, very political. So just give that a skip. Yes, it's a very good one, Suraj. Okay. Thank you, Nandini, for saying that out. I couldn't say that in public. So thank you. All right, guys. So Nandini, for you, I'm opening up that page again and going to explain it. The last paragraph. Oh, we left a paragraph in the end. No, we didn't. Okay, so this paragraph says that in practice, it might not have mattered whether ordeals truly were God's judgment or not. So, see, ultimately you found the culprit. But if God actually found the culprit, or the priest played a very smart trick, we don't know what the reality was. Probably God himself helped as well. Because you see, the 2/3 people came out unscathed, but then 1/3 were harmed. So God actually played the trick, probably. We don't know. But either of the cases, we know the criminal justice system was improved. We could find the culprit. What the process was, who the decision maker was, we don't know that. But we could find the culprit. We had an improved judiciary. We had an improved legal system. Thanks to God. That's what the last paragraph says. Okay. So, thank you so much everyone for watching me live. I shall see you again on Tuesday. Have a very, very good day everyone. God bless you. Bye everyone.